Right, good morning, everybody. So welcome to the Grants Committee. 1 week and 1 day to go until Council rises for the Christmas break. So we have quite a lot on the agenda this morning. So I'd just like to start off with the karakia, and I've asked Councillor O'Neill if she would say it because I'm not prepared to butcher a language.
Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tai. He hi aki ana, te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihei, mauri ora.
So, of course, I have forgotten to ask if you could let us know, or the Democracy Advisors, if you're going to be leaving early. And we do, and morning tea will be at 10:30. And we do have apologies from the Mayor and partial apologies, or apologies for partial attendance from Councillor Winera. I think that's it, isn't it? Yeah? Okay, so first of all, I'd just like to move the motion that we accept the apology from Councillor Winera and the apology from the Mayor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Matthews, thank you. And I put the motion. It's been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please press 1. Those who are against, please press 2 and talk to me later. Fantastic. Unanimous. I declare the motion carried. So I'd like all members of the committee to declare any conflicts of interest that they may have in relation to the items on the agenda. Deputy Mayor Foon.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I will just, in the waste minimisation grants, I have been mentioned as a supporter by, I think it's the milk and meat application. While I'm I would have an actual conflict with probably all of the grants applications that come through, because I've been mentioned on this one. I would like to abstain from the vote.
Thank you. I don't think.
Can we take it separately? That particular?
Sure. Can you remind me at the time? Because okay, so
about to help me. There was, I think there was one of the arts ones which was refused. Was a Cuba Duper thing? Or creative. I saw that they were involved with the Creative Capital Arts Trust. I mean, it's refused, so I don't think it matters, and I'm not going to vote against what the manager are recommending. But is that a conflict of interest?
So I'm advised that as we're not voting on it, it's not a conflict of interest.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any others? Okay, that's fine. So now I'd like to confirm, approve the minutes of the Grants Subcommittee meeting held on October 4, having been circulated, and I'd like they have been taken as read and confirmed as an accurate record of the meeting. So I move the motion. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Foon. Those in favour, please press 1. Those against, press 2. If only all meetings were so easy. I declare the motion carried. Thank you. So I do hate it says there are no items not on the agenda. I don't like the double negative, so I'll just say all items are on the agenda. And we now have public participation. So we're starting with, I'd just like to welcome Sila Leopo and Kyla Rayner from Alofa Pacifica. Good morning and welcome. So you're coming to talk about your application to the Social and Rec Fund.
Yes.
So you have 10 minutes. If you'd like to leave some time for questions, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Malo lava soi fu mamalangi ma. Talafalava, my name is Rasela Luapo, and I am one of the co-founders for Alofa, which is a new emerging Pacific sexual violence. Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay. Malo lava soi fu mamalangi mama talafalava. My name is Rasela Luapo. I'm one of the co-founders of Alofa, which is a new emerging sexual violence Pacific service in Wellington. And here we have...
And I'll just quickly introduce myself also. So I'm also one of the founders and a trustee of Alofa. My name is Kyla Rayner. Some other hats I wear is that I'm the General Manager of Wellington Rape Crisis. I've worked in the violence space for about 15 years across family violence and sexual violence. I'm also on the board of Respected, which is a sexual violence prevention agency based here in Wellington. And I'm also the current chair of Tornest, which is a national umbrella organisation for sexual violence specialist organisations.
So I'm just want to talk to you a little bit about Alofa. We both have worked in the sexual violence sector for a number of years in mainstream services, and we are mindful of the lack of access for Pacifica people to get support who have experienced sexualised violence. We are wanting to stand up a Pacific specialist service in Wellington to work alongside general and mainstream services for Pacific people in the region. We want to ensure that Pacific people have access to the support services that are unique to their needs. MSD published some research on the Pacific workforce across the country about sexual violence practitioners, and this affirmed the need of a Pacific service for Pacific people. Before we looking to launch, we were funded by J.R. Mackenzie to scope the need for a specialist service, and through this work we have found that talking with other Pacific services in the Wellington region is that there is a need for the service. Yeah, thank you.
So that's a little bit about Alofa and the why and where kind of this emerging services come from. And so like Stella said, we received some scoping seed money from J.R. Mackenzie at the end of last year. Across this year, we've gone out and met with a number of general social services and also Pacific social services in the Wellington region. And like Stella's saying, our conversations with them really affirm the need for the specialist intervention. They've relieved that someone might support them to support their clients better. And it again affirmed that this was a massive gap in being able to provide a really informed response to ensure that those impacted by sexualised violence have access to not only the system responses available to them, but also the broad ranges of social services that a lot of services offer, but a lot of our communities experience a barrier to. And so this is an emerging service. This is work we've done with our collective who have now become our board. We're an incorporated trust now, and we've done this work voluntarily sort of for the past 2 years, thinking about what this could look like. And so we wanted to ensure that this could be a complementary intervention that sits along other social service provisions. And in doing that work alongside other social service providers, not only are we ensuring the best and most appropriate response to those survivors, but when working with their social workers, we're building the skills and capability within that other organisation. So we're increasing the reach of appropriate responses to disclosures of sexual violence. So we are looking to run sort of an 18-month pilot period. We've been in long conversations and relationship discussions with MSD, who are the primary funders for this type of baseline critical social service. And while they support this initiative, we have not been able to secure baseline funding from them in this current round and have been encouraged to come back. So we intend to spend the next 18 months providing this service and running a really thorough evaluation process alongside it to inform that evidence base to go back to central government to say this is a critical part of our local system that needs to be a picture of that funded system. I think that what's on the table for WCC to look at is $35,000 towards this 18-month period. We have secured significant funding from the Lotteries Foundation, from Wellington Community Fund. We'll go back to J.R. Mackenzie to ask them to build on that initial investment. And since we went out and did the scoping with services, we have experienced a number of referrals. So people are already wanting to refer to us, even though we do not actually have a service yet. We intend to launch early next year. And the other thing that we're doing alongside service delivery, which will be a stream of revenue for our organisation, are trainings and workshops. So we have already delivered 2 trainings and workshops to Pacific communities, one in Wellington and one we went up to Whangarei or Te Tai Tukaro to deliver it to their Pacific community up there. And we've been, again, inundated with requests from a number of local providers here in Wellington to provide that training of responding to disclosures of sexual violence to their social services teams. So that will also be a part of that picture of funding. I think the question that we had was around our engagement with churches and whether we had approached them for funding. So we did a massive funding scope, obviously, to try and make this dream a reality. We received really phenomenal support from some of the people in the Wellington City Council funding team, namely Yvonne, can't remember her last name, but she was incredibly helpful. And so we reached out to a lot of those places because if they're good places and appropriate, then absolutely we want their money. But we did not see any churches on that list of funders. And again, that's not something that we wouldn't actively pursue if we could identify that we would fit their need. If we're talking about Pacific churches, then that's a bit of a different conversation. That is definitely a community within our large, diverse Pacific community that we would love to engage with. This is a fairly challenging topic for many communities, including our Pacific and especially Pacific church communities. And so we absolutely intend to engage with those communities with the view to provide skills and support in terms of their response to any kind of sexual violence that they might encounter. So that would be our first step in terms of engaging with Pacific churches at least. And there may be opportunities in the future where we would look to co-fund or co-apply for funding appropriate interventions that were tailored to meet the needs of that particular church community. So I hope that answers your question about churches, funding, giving you a little bit of information about who we are, and really happy to take any other questions.
So thank you, and thank you for covering off about the churches. So first of all, I have a question from Deputy Mayor Foon.
Kia ora, Sela and Kyla, thank you so much for your mahi on this. It's good to hear. And my question would just be around location. Obviously, although we completely acknowledge the broad scale of the need, our need would be focused on Te Whanganui-a-Tara or Wellington. Yep. Is that where you would see, if this funding was granted, that it would be focused?
Yeah, in proportion to the funding applied and hopefully received. So we would look to locate out of 2 locations. So we are currently located at 220 Willis Street. So we obviously have really good support from Wellington Rape Crisis. We have a formal relationship agreement, and part of that AFI of this emerging service is the ability to co-locate in their trauma-informed counselling space. And we would also next year look to have not only mobile services for the whole region, but also look to do something in Porirua part of the week as well as we're building up our workforce. So of course would be looking at the local council in those areas to support. But I think in terms of the proportion of funding that we've applied to the council for in relation to our overall operation costs is appropriate, if not low. Yeah.
Thank you. Now I have a question from Councillor Brown.
Just a question about your sort of immediate priorities, whether, and also the use of the funds that you were talking about. Is it actually to provide the service that you're seeking to provide ultimately, or is it more to advocate for central government funding? Because, I mean, I presume this is the sort of service that ultimately relies more heavily on central government funding than it does on the grants of local councils. So, and if obviously if it is for advocacy as opposed to the sort of coal-face stuff, then is this our grant potentially as a one-off to kind of kickstart you? Is that how you see it?
I think primarily just because we have received requests for service and we know that that's a need, that will be our primary focus will always be responding to those survivors and ensuring their needs are met. So we'll be offering a social work service and a counselling service with some long-term recovery and healing. So that is our primary endeavour. But obviously we need to do both. So strategically we are thinking about the fact that we need to fit within that central government system of response services to sexual violence. And so we will continue and use the year to advocate to MSD, that primary funder of this baseline crisis funding, that we belong within that system and that we should receive baseline funding from them. So we'll do both, which is pretty common in our space. And to that end, we will have a frontline workforce delivering those frontline services. We also participate in lots of national groups, like for example, example, we run the Pacific National Network for Sexual Violence Practitioners, and so kind of use those levers and relationships, engaging with officials from Pasifika Proud and other relevant Te Puna Aonui. This really fits within the national strategy Te Aorerekura. So across the year, as we deliver frontline services, we'll also maintain our advocacy position to ensure we get that baseline funding.
Great. Thank you. So the time has expired, but thank you very much for both coming in and explaining so well, especially the questions about the church, which was one of my concerns.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So our next public participant is Robert de Cartier McCarthy and Hayden Afeli Nicol. This is about Hanui strings music, which I have heard on many occasions, and it's fantastic. So welcome. So you have 10 minutes. If you could allow some time for questions, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Kia ora. I'm Robert de Cartier McCarthy. My role with Aranui Strings is I'm the administrator, so I have much of the background knowledge, but I've brought Hayden, who is our artistic director and one of our team leaders and senior tutors, who will do most of the talking.
Talofa lava, morena koutou everybody. So yeah, I'm Hayden Afeli Nicol, and I am a head tutor as well as the artistic director at Aroha Nui Strings. So I will just build a general picture of who we are, what we look like, and what our goals are. Robert deals with data and money things, so lucky I don't have to do any of that. So we are a non-for-profit organisation, and our main kaupapa is social development, individual character development, and community inclusion and connection through music, and in our case specifically through classical music. We offer free music tuition to children all around Wellington, but we have a program in the Hutt Valley and also in Wellington Central. Our Wellington Central program is growing, and our Hutt Valley program is already quite well established. And we try to target low opportunity communities, but that's more an adjacent goal as a vehicle to another kaupapa we carry, which is removing obstacles to classical music, because I don't have to argue the importance of classical music in our society and how well established it is, and the tradition is very strong, but it comes with lots of obstacles, and that means that there's a certain people that will find themselves not in classical music, and so our goal is to remove those obstacles and help more and more people find the benefits that come with classical music. So we we do not have a central base, but we try to plant ourselves in hubs in different areas around the city. We do this by collaborating with schools or with libraries and community centres. So currently in Wellington, we're in Mount Cook School and Holy Cross in Miramar and Newtown Primary School. But we have done outreach programs to other schools, and we would like to expand to be able to be in those schools as well. But something I wanted to bring up is that many of the primary schools, I run the outreach program, and many of the primary schools that I've been in and talked to their principals have reflected a similar sentiment, that they're under a lot of pressure and they have not a lot of resourcing to provide music for their children. And so having these external programs such as ours, and I'm sure there are others, I can think of Virtuoso Strings in Porirua are doing a similar thing, to come in and relieve some of the pressure from the schools, but still enrich the learning experience and music education of children there, is becoming more and more important from what I'm hearing from schools. Our in-school program is kind of just the way to make sure that we're reaching as many people as possible, but the crux of our program is after school, which we also work in collaboration with schools and community centres to be able to use their spaces. And and make it easier for the children to come to. Part of the removing obstacles is being somewhere that is easy to access. Obviously, removing the cost. We offer free lessons and we provide all the instruments and all the gear. That's another obstacle we try to remove. And, pardon me. Of course, and also now this is hard to touch on succinctly, but the kind of cultural disparity that we see in classical music. So I'm Samoan, and I have spent a lot of time being the only Samoan in classical music, and actually now that I am doing it as a career, I'm seeing that there's very few Pasifika Māori actually practicing classical music all over the country. And in recent memory, there's Wilma Smith, who was actually a founding member of the New Zealand String Quartet, Sam Cornise, a successful violinist, and Ludwig Treburanos, a pianist from Upper Hutt, and a few others scattered around, but the fact that there's very few that actually come to mind show that there is something missing in bringing this type of music to those types of communities, namely my communities. And so breaking down these barriers and doing the necessary outreach, I believe, will be one way to do it. Thank you, Rob. I think Robert can deliver some data and talk about our awards, and then we'll take some questions.
Okay, so just remember, we've got 4 minutes to go, and we've got some questions.
I'll be very brief. So recently we were very fortunate to be win the Airport Awards regional in the Hutt. Last year we did it in Wellington, so we've been very fortunate over the last couple of years, but we still haven't secured the big one. So we will keep trying. We are doing events. To give an example, the students, the Tamariki and the Rangatahi, they go to a raft of different events besides the programs that we do, and we've got scholarships, individual training. But the events, since I've been on board, we've gone from 11 or 12 a year. We're doing 11 in this term alone. So it has increased dramatically. Generally an average of around 15 students going to each event, but some of them, like the Government House concert, we had 60 students perform in front of the Governor-General in March. So it's an increasing program. Next year, starting this year, we have opened up to not just strings, which we've been doing since 2010. We're now going into brass and woodwind, and already we're getting students enrolling for the programs for the beginning of next year. So we're averaging 1 new student a day since beginning of November enrolling into the programs for 2024. I think that should cover pretty much what we need to say.
Fantastic, thank you. Now I think, Councillor Matthews, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I just wanted to hear an example of when the outreach, if you've got a story to share about a young person who's been connected through your work. I'd love to hear that.
I have a story of an entire family this is from the Hutt Valley, which is most of where I do my work. I've only recently started with the Wellington hub. But there's a young, or they were young, I guess, a Thai family who I think it was at at St. Michael's in Taita, where one little girl, I think, was just walking past and heard one of the classes and came in, dragged her mum in, and had a little go. And then the next week brought the whole family, and they have been coming for 13 years now, and Shanita, who I'm talking about, is now, she's just finished her first year of university. I think that's
terrific.
That's who first comes to mind.
Now, any other questions? No? So, I mean, if you can help develop another Wilma Smith, that would be fantastic for the classical music
I'm
sector.
working on it.
Thank you very much, and thank you, because the work you do is fantastic, really fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And so now, Craig Watson from the Wellington Pride Parade. Good morning. So again, 10 minutes. If you could leave some time for questions, that would be great. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Kia ora koutou, ko Craig Taku Ingoa. I am been in Wellington for about 5 years and currently am the chair of Rainbow Wellington, which is a professional networking group that's been around since the 80s. This year, I was with yourself on the board for Wellington International Pride Parade. I founded a group which is a national organisation which looks after LGBT Christians who are finding their place in that intersection. And this year have taken on the sort of extra roles or hats. I'm on the board of the Wellington Pride Festival and have started and created the Wellington Pride Parade Trust, which is a registered charitable trust to try and revive the parade. This morning I was reading stuff and there's an article in there from a LGBTQI+ travel magazine that comes out of the US to say that Wellington is one of the best places for rainbow tourists to visit, which is phenomenal. And we're right up there with Costa Rica, Madrid, Vienna, Paris and Stockholm. And this is a thing that goes out to millions of people all around the world, so it's phenomenal to be there. They make special mention of our Pride Festival and Pride Parade. And also you would have received our Wellington guide in your post, and in there is also mention of our Pride Festival and Pride Parade. And so today you're going to talk about a little bit later about how we can make those events happen, which we are really passionate about. So in July this year, the Wellington International Pride Parade, known as WIP, the members met and decided to dissolve that group as there was not the buy-in from the members to carry on with the parade. That left an opportunity and a hole in our community's celebratory events. And so myself and Jack Rainey, who you'll know from Everybody Eats, said, let's get this thing going. It's a massive event for our community. So I volunteer at Everybody Eats as well. So if you ever want to come along for a dinner on Sunday to Wednesday, you'll see me at the door. And along with about 10 volunteers that we have recruited from Everybody Eats, we now have a great team of people who are producing the Pride Parade. There is a website, there is some new branding. We've partnered with Hemisphere, who is a creative agency down in Oriental Bay. They have created their take on the bucket fountain pouring into a rainbow, which is really beautiful. So I encourage you to check out our social media or website. One of the things the community has asked us to do is to make sure that we do community engagement, and so we've already held 2 community engagements. Both of these were incredibly tense for me. The first one was just a welcome to the community to get them to come and sit and tell us what their Pride Parade looks like. But the second was addressing the big elephant in the room, which is police participation and how police work in parades. And so we asked some of the community and some of the diversity liaison officers to come together and speak. And I described that meeting as, for our community, they came into the room at -10. They wanted to defund the police and they left. I noticed a couple of people shaking hands between the police and the community. So I think we went from -10 to maybe -5. And I'm really hoping that we and organisations like Rainbow Wellington and Inside Out can start to continue to move in that direction, which is something that's not happening in the rest of New Zealand. So I think that's quite big. I also thought it was really relevant and important for me to join the festival board. I'm a project manager at 1NZ Vodafone. I'm an event manager. I've organised the Olympic Games and Rugby World Cup, so know what I'm doing. And said it's time that if the festival needs it, I'll step up and join the festival as well. But the festival board is really keen to see the 2 events come back. And you may not know the history, but there has been a bit of anger between the 2 groups, and now there is a real, what seems to be a real passion to bring the 2 groups back together. And take a leadership role in owning the narrative and encouraging our community to see the 2 back together. But to see there are important places for both. One of those things is that the hikoi will still happen, which is more of the protest march, and that must happen before the parade. We must deal with our issues and anger and get that out of the way before we celebrate, so the parade doesn't overshadow the hikoi. So those are some of the conversations we're having. Yeah, that is all from me. That's just what I just wanted to also, I suppose, mention. There has been a slight rumour that there's a bunch of funding that the Wellington International Pride Parade might gift to the parade. That is not the case. We have tried to ask, and they just are refusing to answer emails and text messages. And so we cannot rely on that funding. We've got bills to pay. So. Yeah, that's why we're coming to the council. We hope to make the parade a not only self-funding event in the future, but and we've made this pledge to the festival that we aim to help it be a big lever of funding for the festival, so that any profits raised at the parade will then go over to the festival.
That's great, thank you. Just a couple of things. So first of all, I'm really delighted you've picked it up. It was a fantastic parade, and it was great the way it brought all sorts of Wellingtonians out to kind of enjoy the culture and the. I found it very joyful, so that was fantastic. I'm really pleased that you're doing more coordination between events, because that was one of the problems of the silos. So I would just say I did text Richard Tate this morning, who was the former chair of WIP before it dissolved, to find out about the funding, and it has been dispersed to other organisations, so I'm sorry, because I thought there might have been a pocket of gold that we could access. So anyway, I'm sorry about that. But anyway, thank you. So I have got a question now from Councillor O'Neill.
Kia ora, Craig. Thanks for coming in. My question is, so you've requested $10,000 for the amount, and our papers currently read at $3,000 of the 10, excluding the gala funding. What is the minimum number that you kind of need to deliver a parade, or how will you be looking to fund the shortfall?
Yeah, so the total amount on my budget says $109,000 to run the parade, but that's because one of the things that we're trying to do is carry on the street festival vibe, and we're going to run a stage in Lower Cuba Street. The quotes that we've received from production suppliers is around the $39,000 to $49,000 mark. So we can strip that out. And run the parade for about $30,000, but the need to invest, or the need to get seeding fund, which is what we were hoping to get from Wellington International Pride Parade, has not come through, and so we are desperate for what I would call a seeding fund to get this thing rolling. We've talked around the figure of about $8,000 will be enough to run it on a shoestring, but we've got to pay for traffic management, which is $12,000. We've got to put safety in for our volunteers. We've got to get high-vis vests to make sure that the crowd and the people are safe that are in those things. So there are just costs that we can't get away from that will prevent the parade from happening.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No? Craig, Councillor Fearn, Deputy Mayor Fearn.
Yeah, Craig, thank you so much. And just want to check in on the parade, because I know Council has got an events team. Are you working alongside them just to help with some of those costs so that you don't have to purchase new things?
Trying to. They're becoming very difficult to engage with. We've got we've had lots of emails that have us still waiting for replies months later, but we are working with them, yes. Okay,
maybe Councillor O'Neill, sorry, we can help follow up with that. Yeah, thank you.
No, that'd be good. And now another question from Councillor Brown.
I know that Cuba Duper's got the same infrastructural expenses and problems. Have you spoken to Drew James about the possibility of using some of his expertise or perhaps some of their gear?
Yeah, so we've been working with the Capital Arts Trust, Cuba Duper Fringe Festival people, the team, and they have put us on to someone else in the production team who I think might be that person. It's another person in our team that's working on that, but yes, we are working with them, yeah.
Great, Craig, thank you. And great to have someone with your expertise running it, because I know it's a very complicated thing to run with many moving parts. So thank you for coming in this morning.
No problem, thank you.
So now we're on to general business, and I'd just like to, so we'll start with the waste minimisation seed fund for applications over $2,000, and a bit of a change of the guards here, okay. So I'd just like to welcome Joanna Langford and Jenny Elliott to introduce the report. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Joanna Langford tāku ingoa. He apia hanonga ka whakawhaiti para ahau. I'm the Senior Waste Minimisation Officer here at the Council, and Jenny Elliott is the Waste Operations Manager. This year we had 9 applications to our Waste Minimisation Seed Fund, requesting a total of just over 140,000 with 75,000 to allocate. We're recommending funding 5 projects, 2 in full and 3 in part. Projects were weighed up against our fund criteria, with consideration given to projects that will help us to achieve our goals within our zero waste strategy. The zero waste strategy is looking to achieve intergenerational sustainability through a move to the circular economy. And we know that we need innovation and we need expansion of zero waste businesses and initiatives that are working in the upper tiers of the waste hierarchy. That is enabling reuse, repair, refill, and shared services so that materials can stay in circulation for as long as possible. This is the activities that we need to not only reduce waste, but to save resources and to save emissions. 4 of the recommended projects are working in the upper reuse tier of the hierarchy, and 1 project is working lower down in recycling. But we are recommending this project because it's looking to fill a gap in options for construction and demolition. I'll take the paper as read and happy to answer any questions.
Sure.
Sorry, you're rather swift.
You know,
which is
crack
good.
on.
It's good. Kia ora. Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the Newtown. Actually, 2 questions, but one was about the composting, the compost gold for Newtown. So just understanding, as you know, I'm a big advocate for composting, but just wanted to get officers' reasons why you've not recommended, but also is there another opportunity for that project to come through?
Yeah, so it is a really worthy project and they're doing a great job already composting at Newtown School. Composting is lower down in the waste hierarchy in the recycling tier, so that's taken into consideration. Also, they are applying for money for 4 big composting systems, and they are needing wages for a compost manager to run this. And so we're question the viability, future viability of how they're going to get that money in the future. Also, we support schools a lot in the composting area. We offer free infrastructure to schools, so compost bins, worm farms. We have Zero Education in there delivering workshops and enviro schools as well, so there is a lot of support there. We are going to recommend that they we've flagged to the Community Compost Hubs facilitator that there might be an option for them to be included in the Community Compost Hubs trial, and they will be able to also apply to our Organics Diversion Fund, which is open at the moment for EOIs.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Just a question about the Valley Meat and Dairy Limited milk, which I have asked somebody who's a specialist in kind of hygiene in these areas, and she was quite sceptical that actually this thing would be hygienic. So have you actually checked that aspect of this program, that if these guys are going to deliver bulk milk to cafes, how do we know that, because at the moment, obviously, if Fonterra is delivering you the plastic 2-litre bottle, it's clearly hygienic because it comes in that particular format. But is that something which you actually assessed in in providing this funding?
They already have taps in a lot of businesses, infidels, and core hotels. I guess to do this, they need to meet the safety standards. There's other organisations that operate in refill as well, and they meet the standards.
Tim, I've got it here. Just one moment while Councillor Brown. Okay.
Yeah.
So, any other questions on this? No, I am a little. Queasy is not quite the right one. I'm not entirely convinced by this application, but I think, are we doing an amendment to the substantive? No, we're not. Are we doing an amendment at all? No. Oh, is that what I do? Thank you. Sorry. Is there a mover for the motion? You can't do it, and Tim's going to do it. Thank you, Councillor Brown. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Is there any debate? Yes. Sure.
Yes, I just want to thank the officers, but also just thank all the organisations that are applying. It's really good to see some of the innovations that are going on. But what I did want to talk about was composting and how important it is for the whole system.
Yeah.
Oh, I just... Oh, wait, it's all good. I think that while we've got eagerness, so I'm just really pleased to hear the officers say there's another opportunity for this. And I think Newtown School has shown a lot of activity in this space, and as a school, or actually as an area, this is such a big opportunity to show the whole system and make it work really well for food sovereignty or food independence in our community. And actually, that I know that we are gunning to get that organics collection system in, but every single submission to all of the work that we've done here, particularly in the Regional Waste Minimisation Plan, is saying we can't rely on one system. We need to build up community resilience as well as a collection service, and that actually this is a resource, and preferably you keep the resource in the community, you don't ship it off somewhere else. So I think that now that officers have said there is another way that Newtown can possibly be part of a composting hub, I'm very satisfied with that, because I do think in a built-up community like Newtown, we need to be enabling lots of little compost hubs all over the city to go alongside the organics collection service when that comes in. So thank you for that, and I will keep going on about it, so just bear with me, councillors.
No, we do know we all have various hobby horses.
Thank you, councillor.
So now, does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor O'Neill, you look as though you're warming up.
I just, potentially a question through debate, but were we working on an amendment as a group? Did you have an amendment?
I think the answer to that is, having spoken to Officer Roberts, the answer is no.
Oh, righty, cool. All right, just wanted to highlight in case. But very well said, Deputy Mayor Foon, and certainly our lack of debate is not our lack of passion on the subject, but it is well taken care of and understood.
There are no amendments. So, Councillor Brown, you have the right of reply. Would you like to exercise it, or would you like to give it a miss? I'll give it a miss. I thought you might. Okay, I will now put the motion, which has been moved and seconded. But just, sorry, one separate thing separately. So Deputy Mayor Foon has declared a non-financial interest relating to the application number 5. That is the Valley Meat and Dairy Limited application for 25,000. So she will not debate that specific application, and she will excuse or recuse herself from the table when we vote, which is now. So we'll take number 5 separately. So let me just here. So we'll do the first. So we'll do. So this is officers' recommendations 2.1. So we'll receive the information and agree to the allocation of 1 to 4. So all those in favour, please press 1. And those against, press 2. On we go. Great. So now I'll take recommendation number 5, which is as it stands in the papers, no amendments. All those in favour, please press 1. And Councillor Brown thinks he's absent. But he's not. Terry? Is Nico online? Yes. Oh. Welcome, Councillor Wanera. So, okay, that's great. That's passed. Thank you very much. So I'm just wondering whether before we... Oh, let me just... One moment. Because I don't like things to be chopped in the middle, I'm suggesting we have morning tea now, and then we come back at 10:30, so 10 minutes for morning tea, because you know I like to be speedy. 10 minutes for morning tea, and then we'll do arts and culture. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're back in action now. We'll now come to the Arts and Culture Fund. Was it you who was going to move it, Rebecca? Because you were volunteering where I had a...
Oh, I can do it. I can do it if you would like.
Thank you. Just like to welcome Andy Lowe and Grace Hoti and Katie. Why aren't you up there? Katie Taylor-Duke to introduce the report.
E koe mai koroma I rauranga te rama, ngā mātauaka, ngā paimaunga, ngā waia o te motu, tēnā tātou. Ko tēnei te ringa o te tangata e noho nei ki raro I te maramaru o tarurua maunga. E rere te awa kairangi ki te whanganuatara, te kainga o ngā tini whetū, taranaki whānui te ate awa Ngāti Toa. He oi anō, ma whero ma pango ka oti te mahi, ma tō raurau, ma tōku raurau, ka pūo ai te katoa, no reira tēnā tātou. Kia ora everybody, ko Andy Lowe tōku ingoa. Great to be here, thank you for having us. I have with me Senior Arts Advisor Grace and Katie, as you've just heard. Look, I just wanted to say around the Ahotini strategy, we have had it in place since 2021. The team have been in place since 2022, and we're making some good progress in some areas, connecting with mana whenua and Māori, opening up creative venues and providing career pathways for artists and creatives to ensure we retain and grow our title of Creative Capital, which we received again this year, so it's so exciting. This is the second of 3 arts and culture funding rounds for the 23-24 financial year. The fund comprises 602,733 for the year, and it's made up of 302,733 as a general arts and culture fund, 200,000 to support independent artists and groups who meet the criteria for this category, 100,000 for operational budgets, which can also be allocated to professional performing arts practitioners, and this time we received 49 applications, and this requesting a total of $495,138 compared to 61 in the last funding round. Within these applications, the predominant genre was music, which accounted for 9 of the applications, with 7 arts festivals and theatre applications and 6 visual arts-based genres. The remaining applications were a mix of other genres, ngā toi Māori, dance, interarts, craft and literature. Officers recommend the grant subcommittee approve a total of 196,323 from the Arts and Culture Fund, Independent Artists and Performing Arts table. This is a total balance available for allocation in this funding round. To be eligible for funding, applicants had to have projects that delivered to at least one of the Ahotini criteria. In this funding round across all applications, 30 of the applications aligned strongly to the Aho Tangata strand of Ahotini, which is about increasing the diversity of our communities and encouraging access, inclusiveness and participation in arts and culture. 37 of the applications aligned strongly to the Aho Mahi strand, supporting career pathways for artists. 12 of the applications aligned strongly to the Aho Whenua strand, our places, spaces, venues. 15 applications aligned with the Aho Hononga strand, which is about partnering with mana whenua and Māori, and that's more than last time, so we're really excited about that. Grace has led the work in her capacity as Senior Arts Advisor, so I'll hand it over to Grace for any pātai, also Katie and myself. Tēnā tātou. Kia ora.
Any questions before we move to debate? So I have a question. So actually, it's a question for Stephen Blackburn about the events fund. So apparently the Pride Parade have had trouble getting any response from the events fund. I just wonder if you could comment on that, please.
My comment would be I'm unaware of those problems. The logistical support officer, who I've texted already, has mentioned to me that he's responded in a timely manner to all queries that have been put to him.
So could I just suggest you have a little chat at the back of the room, because that would be with Craig Watson, just to make sure there aren't any kind of lack of wires connecting and things like that. That would be helpful, because you know it's a great parade, and it would be good for the council to be doing all it can to help them.
Yeah, which we are. My understanding is it's more a funding issue than it is a logistical support, but I'm happy to talk with Craig.
Great, thank you very much. Any other questions?
If you have any questions for officers about the substantive.
But you haven't really got a question for officers, have you?
you want me to sort of raise the what we were talking about before as a question, or it's probably easier, isn't it?
If you like.
So, just going to application 42, which was the Queen's Closet, which was for $18,000, which you guys rejected in total. Last year we gave the Queen's Closet $19,200, and I'm aware that they delivered a large amount of work, whether it was in collaboration or as individual performances. And so I've moved to substantive change because I would like us to actually provide them with a grant to start their year, but I would like also to hear your views about why they've effectively gone from $19,200 this year to nothing as a starter for next year, and your view that if we do provide them with a $5,000 grant, whether there is room for them to actually come back and have a conversation with our team about, if you like, renewing the funding, or whether there's some reason why you feel that our funding relationship with the Queen's Closet should actually be terminated.
O tēnā koe, Councillor Brown. We have had applications from Queen's Closet every time recently, and so they have been provided with funding, as you know. We always try and balance, apart from the fact that we have not huge amounts of funding, we try to provide funding for so many organisations across the city. And the fact that we consider whether or think about the sustainability of those organisations and how they are self-funding or thinking about the future in terms of them being able to fund themselves or at least in part. So this is kind of a constant knife edge that we're walking around whether we fund people or we don't, or we partial fund them, because sometimes if we partially fund them, that's not going to be enough for what they need to actually do, ongoing. So we're thinking about that future of the organisation.
But one of the problems, which was, because I have reached out to them, I contacted them about this, and they were quite shocked to actually go to get nothing, and so I'm just curious as to what sort of dialogue there has been, so that why did they get a surprise basically from putting in this application and getting nothing, and I have a follow-up question on that, is that the reason I've got a substantive, not for the whole amount they've asked for, I've only got a substantive request that we actually give them 5, which would be roughly consistent with what we did last year. We did it in dollops. Is that if we do give them $5,000, or if the other members of this committee vote to give them $5,000 as this application, whether there's room for you guys to actually sit down and have a conversation with them and decide whether in fact that's the end of it for them, or whether there's still room to move basically in future. The shock is the main thing. Why are they surprised?
Aye, well, they were funded in the last August round, just 2023, and were given $5,000 from the Arts and Culture and $5,200 from the Living Wage Fund. And because they were also funded in the March 2023, which is a different financial year, of course, to the amount of $9,000 in living wage, they've been coming in consistently each round, and it's really difficult to be able to consistently fund for them each round. And so when it was put up against the others, like Aroha Nui Strings, we had to look at how frequency their funding was, and we can see that they have been funded for each round. So in this round, we had to take that into consideration, that they were not a priority because of previous funding. But however, we do really support Queen's Closet. They are a very excellent group, and they do have a niche market.
Totally.
I would actually don't think they do have a niche as such, because when I've gone to their... Okay, sorry.
Is there a mover for the motion? Well, I'm going to move it.
Oh, you're going to move it now?
Because you didn't want to move it.
You just asked me to.
No, I thought...
You
sorry.
do it.
No, I didn't.
You do it. You do it.
Councillor Matthews is going to move the paper. And then is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor Foon. So there is an amended substantive, which is the Queen's Closet, $5,000 to the Queen's Closet. Is that up on the screen? Yes, there.
So how has that amendment come about, or that change to the substantive?
Councillor Brown has.
Okay, then.
Have I not? I haven't explained it, have I?
No, because you've got me to move something with an amendment which I don't know about. Yeah.
There is an amended substantive with Councillor Brown, $5,000 for Queen's Closet. Are you happy with that, Councillor Matthews?
I guess I would just, I know there's been some questions, but I would like just some officer advice on that change to the substantive. But yes.
I'll be honest, I'm always supportive of Queen's Closet Trust. They have a lovely professionalism to them, and they do need support. So if you're able to offer that, yes.
How does that sit with in terms of the amounts and the funds?
It'll take more fund off the next round, but we'll deal with that in the next round.
Okay. Yes, I'm happy to move that.
I do apologise. You know I'm a bit klutzy about this process stuff. And so do we have a seconder? That's good. You're on board with that. So thank you very much. So now, is there any debate?
I just want to thank the team for their work, thank all of the organisations and artists for their applications. Always we would support everybody, if we could. And I guess I'm just particularly excited to see the way Ahotini is expressing itself through the grants process. So it was really good to hear that update, Andy, about how that is working. And I continue to think it's of the work we did in the last council something we can be very proud of, and now we're sort of watching it fly. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Foon.
You can't hold me back. I'd like to say something as the seconder. Yes. Kia ora. I back the, support the words of the mover and really enjoy reading how the projects align with Ahotini. That's a really important part of my read. And I do want to just really sing the praises of Aroha Nui Strings, seeing them win the Arts and Culture section and the Airport Community Awards was quite spectacular. But also I did have the pleasure of being invited to visit them in Mount Cook School, and I'll share the video later, but it was the most diverse group of children I think I've ever seen on strings, and they were something else. But I think the main thing is, like many of these things, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. I think Hayden just is a magnet. And so, the kids just look at him and would do whatever, he was leading them into. So, it's really important that we enable young leaders in our community through funding, and that's what's happening here. So, that is something to be proud of for sure. And also pleased to see the Asian Events Trust in there, kia ora for that, and many other things. So, there's such a broad scope, and it's exciting to imagine the city over summer with all of this.
Kia ora.
So, Councillor Brown.
Thanks. I'd just like to make 3 points. One is I really support management's advice in this area, and I think your diligence and hard work is tremendous. And that's very important in the context of obviously the financial pressures that the council is under, because for us to be able to justify renewing these funds year on year and hopefully increasing it means that we have to be confident that the money is being well looked after and allocated in a way that is really adding value to the community, because you will no doubt read constantly, or if you in the media there's coverage about back to basics, why don't you just focus on pipes, etc. And which is a whole nother challenge I'd like to I won't talk about pipes, but I think that what we're doing through these initiatives is tremendously valuable to our communities, and it would would be a tragic mistake of the council to not continue to this sort of activity, and it's really based on the hard work you guys put in and the quality of the work you actually do. The specific change which I did ask for about the Queen's Closet is because I am quite aware of what they do, and I feel they're a group that spans a lot of genres. They perform a great deal of Wellington. They are quite a wacky group, but they actually collaborate with a lot of others, and I hope that they will continue to be successful. And I think that our relatively modest amount of financial backing for them is very important to that success. So I'm glad, or I hope that my colleagues can actually support that, and I'm glad that you guys, weren't sort of pushing back too vigorously on that one. But I understand the position, but I think it's important that we do actually show them some support. So I'm glad it wasn't sort of too much of a poke in the eye for you guys. So thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak or give a poke in the eye? Which one's that? Yes. Yes, it is. It is 26 and 27.
Is the festival different?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yep. Oh, kia ora. Thank you. Yes, I would like to speak. I'll speak to the substantive and my amendment at the same time, and Councillor Wineta is going to second this one. So very recently we held a rainbow competency training with all of our councillors in Pauiwi, and coming out of those few hours we ended up with a few actions. One of the core things was to embed ongoing money and resources into operating Rainbow Kaupapa. It's been an incredibly tough year for the Rainbow community. We have seen numerous political changes internationally and sentiments nationally that have kind of put parts of our community in a more vulnerable place, but we've also shown some fantastic shows of support and aroha from Wellingtonians, and I call out the counter-protest we did for Posey Parker, which drew about 5,000 Wellingtonians into Civic Square as a celebration of positive support. And we know that organisations like Council, it is vital to ensure rainbow communities feel supported in our city, and we want to keep nurturing that. It aligns with our Courtney Place precinct, Mahi Poniki Promise, Te Awe Mapara, children and young people, countless number of things. And I'd like to raise an amendment to move the money allocated to Wellington Pride Parade Trust from $3,000 to $8,000, and that is to kind of recognise and amplify the work that's been done through Craig and his community, and acknowledging that as a city the Pride Parade is something that is really important to us and something we would love to fund and get amongst. And I recommend support to my colleagues, and happy to answer any questions in right of reply.
So thank you. So Councillor Winera, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Oh, okay. So what do I do now? Oh, sorry, this is debate on the amendment. Any debate? What a great committee this is. Okay, so now we vote on the debate, on the amendment. Oh, right of reply?
No right of reply. I just would like to, Councillor Matthews also pointed out to me that could we please take number 16 separately, Social Change Collective, as a...
That's the next paper.
That is the next paper, right, okay. Sorry, I'm getting all muddled.
That's moving even faster.
Right, good.
All right, so, and I'll put the motion. This is for the amendment. Okay, and this is for the amendment to increase the funding for the Pride Parade from 5 to 8. Is that right? Yes. 3 to 8. Okay, sorry. So I now put the motion, which has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, please press 1. Those against, please press 2. Boom. Right, well, let's sort that out. I declare the motion carried. Great. Well done. So now we move back to the main part of the paper, and we've got that moved and seconded. Now we have debate on the paper. Is that right? We've done that. Okay, so is right of reply? Oh, there's something I'd like to say. Sorry, something else. So there are just a couple of things. First of all, I am so grateful to our outstanding team, Andy, Grace, and Katie in particular, who are so patient, and Mark, so patient, so knowledgeable, and they cope with all my miscellaneous queries with wisdom and kindness. So thank you for that. But I also would like to say that going through this paper, it has been a real eye-opener for me because I had never been to Enjoy Gallery and I thought it was some kind of And so I spoke to a couple of the leading dealers in town, arts dealers, I might say, in town, and they said, oh no, it's a really important part of the arts ecosystem because we actually send our staff out to check their exhibitions because that's how we sometimes find our new artists. So I went down to see it and I thought this is an amazing space, and apparently they're going to have a fantastic exhibition in about February, which is when we all come back suntanned or freckled, depending on your demographic. And so I would just say, I'm really grateful to the officers for saying, you need to find out more about this in a very polite way. And I also did ask about the Russian festival. So these are, you can be Russian speaking without being one of Putin's henchmen. So these are people from the Ukraine and other areas like that. And I think it's really good that we can support them in a small way to celebrate their culture, which will be there longer than Mr. Putin. Look, I won't go through anything else. I'd just like to say I think it is fantastic, as you said. These are a fantastic range of things we support, and it reflects the diversity and breadth of interest in Wellington. And I am particularly pleased to have read that story in this morning's paper about the Wellington being one of the gay-friendliest cities in the world, which I have sent to a friend of mine in Berlin who lives in Berlin and here. So, through all that now, so I put the motion. Okay, and I'll put the motion, which has been moved and seconded, with the exception of, I wrote it down and I've lost it now. Is it number 16? Was it one that you were?
Oh, it's for the next paper.
Oh, that's the next paper, okay. So I put the motion, moved and seconded. Those in favour, please press 1. Those against, please press 2. Oh, I was about to press 2. Right, fantastic. Good. Thank you all very much. Thank you, officers. And sorry, Nicole. Yes, thank you. Story of my life, not always looking over my shoulder. Right, so now we come on to the Social and Recreation Fund.
That was one you did ask me.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. This is very stressful for me because process is not one of my strengths. Okay, so I'd just like to welcome Yvonne Mackey and Mark Farah. Oh, there is, and Millie Lambest to introduce the report, please.
Kia ora to you all. I'm here to introduce the Social and Rec paper. We had a total amount requested of 290,000, and in this allocation we had 112 that we gave out. This is the second round, but we will not be going for a third round because we've used all the funds. We had 29 applications, 24 that were recommended for approval. 12 of them are from the Residents Association that come into this fund. And because we're not running a third round, more of them came to us this time. We also are including the one recommended for the Wellington Badminton, which is through the Sportsville Partnership and Feasibility Fund. And there were 4 that we recommended for the decline. Just have you got any questions?
Councillor Brown?
I was just curious about a couple of the Residents Association applications that were for less than $1,000, given that there's a $1,000 minimum. So I want to go back to these guys and just ask them why they did it. But so why did Haitaitai and Strathmore both ask for less than $1,000?
Sometimes they're just looking for website costs, specific costs, and they feel they don't actually need that 1,000. We do encourage them when we speak to them that they can apply. But they're happy with that amount, and with limited funds, we agree that would be okay. So we haven't got that much to spend. So. Yeah.
Does anyone else have a question? No? All right. What about right of reply?
Well, I move it first. But I shall now do so. So I just want to thank the team for all their work again, and acknowledging all of the organisations that we're able to support. And I guess just thinking about our public participants again, it was really great to meet the people from Alofa, and just very happy to continue to do the work supporting all of these organisations and the great work that they do. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Could we take number 16 separately when the vote comes? Thank you.
Social Change Collective?
Yes. Non-pecuniary interest.
So I'm going to put the motion. Oh, seconder. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Foon. So, does anyone else wish to debate this? Have anything to say? No, that's great. I love that. So now I put the motion. So now I put the motion, which has been moved and seconded, but with the exception of number 16, which we'll take separately, because Councillor O'Neill has a non-financial conflict of interest. Okay, so it's number 1 and 2, excluding item number 16. All those in favour, please press 1. Those not in favour, please press 2. Councillor Wynier is not there anymore. Okay. And so that was unanimous, wasn't it? Yes. Okay. So in no press. So now we'll take number 16, Social Change Collective. All those in favour, please say press number 1. Those against? There aren't any. Okay. Right. I declare the motion carried. So now we go on to the Downtown City Ministry, that's right. So I think we're having Mark Farrer this time, looks like it. And Millie Lambus, please welcome Mark and Millie Lambus to introduce the report.
Kia ora tātou, ko Millie toku ingoa. I'm the harm prevention team lead here in the Connected Communities team, alongside Mark Farrar, who you're all well aware of. I'm here to introduce the paper for the Social and Rec Fund extension for DCM for the extension of an additional year, so that's ending in June 2025. We've got a range of organisations who are on multi-year contracts, so those are 3-year contracts. DCM is the only contracted organisation whose funding schedule isn't aligned with the rest of the organisation, so we're proposing to just extend for that additional year so that the contract aligns with the other portfolio of multi-year contracts. Many of you will be aware of the work that DCM does. They provide essential services to our community, in particular our street community here in Pōneke. The funding that we provide them is for their outreach service and sustaining tenancies. The outreach service is a core service, meeting people where they're at on the streets, finding people. They partner with our operational teams such as Hapaiaki and a variety of other services here. So really essential to the work we're doing within our strategic homelessness response and building that trust with our street community. So an essential service that we propose that we continue that funding for. So I will take that paper as read, but am happy to answer any questions.
Deputy Mayor Foon.
Thanks, Millie. So just confirming, is this the amount that you would be recommending in the normal, not normal cycle, and you're bringing it forward into a normal cycle and just wanting assurance of that? Yeah.
DCM are the only organisation that were out of the funding cycle, so we did some work to align all the other multi-year contracts to end at the end of June 2025. So this is the only one that isn't in that same cycle. So our plans are to do some work around a review of the Social and Recreation Fund and bring that into you in October next year, so that when you make decisions in May 2025 for contracts going forward, then you'll be able to deal with everything at the same time. So this amount that we're recommending is the same amount as they funded this year, with a 2.4% inflationary increase.
Right. Okay. Yep. So then the next question on that is, would this won't stop DCM from being able to be allocated more funding should the council wish to do that as part of the LT?
So they'll be in the same cycle as everybody else in the funding cycle. So then everything's will be on the table at that point for you to decide what happens.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So now I have a mover. One more question, Councillor Neal. Oh, sorry, thank you. Councillor Neal is moving the paper and is being seconded by Councillor Matthews. Yeah, Councillor Matthews. Is there any debate? Yeah.
Kia ora. I just quickly wanted to take this time to acknowledge the massive role DCM has played in the fabric of Wellington City. They remain a grassroots organisation with a history of getting a lot done, bang for buck, and probably one of my most proud investments that the council makes. We've battled alongside them through the cost of living increases, severe flooding, cyclone and Loafers Lodge tragedy. And to say I plan to organise all a big visit with James and Margot and elected members in Pauiwi early next year to come and have a yarn with Natalia and Stephen, and to acknowledge also their role in increasing their own capability, doing things like providing dentures to people who haven't had teeth for 20 years and are learning how to smile again for the first time. And in terms of their own community, the outreach has completely grown. They're there when everyone else closes their days for public holidays and other things like that. And it's really clear to see the fabric and the place that they hold in Wellington City. So really recommend just the continued support of DCM funding.
DCM that when I pay the extortionate fees to go to my dentist, I am somewhat heartened by the fact that one day a month he works at DCM. So think about that when you're paying a lot of money for your teeth. We've got to move us in debate. Right of reply. That was your right of reply. Was that a sort of wrap of both? Good. So I will now put the motion, which has been moved and seconded. How many meetings do you get at where every vote to date is unanimous? So I declare the I'd just like to welcome James Roberts to introduce the report.
Kia ora koutou. So the action tracking, as the report says, there have been 88 resolutions passed, all are complete with the exception of 3 that are still in progress. And of those 3, if you want to refer to the page, I'll talk about the second one. So the next grant subcommittee recommend to the next annual plan or LTP to seek officers' advice on an increase in the Natural Environment Fund. So our advice is kind of there. It's probably going to be challenging. So I'm not sure how much further to take that one, to be honest. The third one, the release of information, I think is scheduled to happen in May 2024. And the first one, and I'm speaking off the top of my head, quite frankly, on this one, I know that we have recently talked about homelessness, and we have an expectation of an accessibility action plan to come back to council for the social subcommittee next year. I'm not sure, Mark, if you've got any comments to make, but I would assume that staff are considering this point as part of those two actions. But hand on heart, I'd need to verify with Mark.
Yeah, that's the case. Yeah, it's all part of the accessibility action plan work, or it will be.
At the end of your speech. Okay. So does anyone have any questions before we move into debate? Deputy Mayor Foon.
So if you are on 2.2, giving us your advice that the next grant subcommittee recommend to the next annual plan and LTP to seek officers' advice on the increase in the Natural Environment Fund, you're saying that the advice is, cost restraints. So what will happen to this recommendation, to this action? Sorry?
I'm suggesting we could note it in the minutes, and then it goes forward. Do these minutes go to council?
Yes.
Kinda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a subcommittee, right? So it's reported back to council, correct or not?
The subcommittee reports back to social.
To social and cultural, yeah.
Committee of the Whole.
Which is the same people.
Yeah. Almost. Councillor Neil, do you wish to speak? Anyone wish to,
I just wanted to. I actually do. Which was just to note that support for disabled people experiencing homelessness has formed part of the advice that we had in the paper that came to us recently in the review of. So that was good to see. So it was covered.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just recognise that in that last discussion we were asked to go and do a homelessness strategy. So that's obviously a piece of work that still has to happen.
So, do we have a mover for?
I'm still sorry. Yes, sorry. I'm still not clear. I guess what I would like to see happen is that it has been recommended to go through one annual plan, one LTP, and I would like to see it go through to the next annual plan. But I don't know how to do that from here. So I don't want to lose that recommendation at all. Yeah. So how would we do that to make that happen?
Kia ora, councillors. There, in the recent level of service papers that you've been working through over the last couple of months, there was a culmination of actions like this one from across the various committees that committed to looking at increases of funds or actions as part of the LTP. And so that level of service paper looked to close off all those actions, resolutions from these individual committees in that one. So once that the LTP work proceeds through to consultation, all of those individual resolutions can be then closed off.
Or reopened.
Or reopened,
Thank
yes.
you.
Anyone else have any questions? I thought you were waiting for someone up there. That's all right. So is there a mover for the motion? I think it's Councillor O'Neill. And a seconder? Councillor Brown? Yes, so we won't ask you to second it then. Oh, he's going to second it. Okay, Councillor Brown has seconded it. Is there any debate? This is excellent.
This is it, we're going to give.
Quick but chaotic. Right of reply. No right of reply. So I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Those in favour, blah, blah, green button. Those against, press 2. Another unanimous vote. I declare the motion carried. So, I'd just like Councillor O'Neill to lead the karakia, please. I declare the meeting closed.
Unuhia, 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 ki te uru tapu nui, kia wātia, kia māma, tēnā kau, te tinana, te wairoa, e te ara takatu. Whakairia, kia wātia, ai rā, ko wātia.
Thank you all, by the way, for putting up with my slightly shambolic approach to this. But it's because I've, amazing because I've been on